Engaging Dementia have kindly asked me to put together this series of Flourishing. So really all about getting out into nature and all the benefits therein for the staff, the family, the healthcare workers, and for people living with dementia themselves, all the great benefits that are. I have studied therapeutic, social and therapeutic horticulture over the last 3 years, and I'm qualified in that. I also have a background in botany, nature studies, and teaching. And I have over 20 years experience working with people with living with a dementia, setting up activities in nursing homes around here in Dublin and around Ireland. And also my mother lived with Alzheimer's for 17 years. So that was certainly hands-on experience of what works. So this morning, we're really focusing on the living nature outside the door, particularly in the summer. The buzzing bees, the butterflies, the birds, everything that crawls and lives out in our gardens and our parks, down by our rivers, at the seaside, all of the creatures, and how noticing them can really add to our life and to the lives of those living with a dementia. I can't overstate it, the great benefits. So what I want to do is I'm going to start off with the general description of the benefits, and then I will share a PowerPoint with you where we will look particularly at certain aspects of that and how nature and song, music, poetry can aid you in your accompanying a person living with dementia. So to begin at the beginning, I suppose it's always been known that nature is very soothing for us humans, and mankind have always looked to the skies and to the sea, to the rivers, to the woods for inspiration. And one thing that they find, of course, is peace and quietness and solitude. Very often the attention is then grabbed by the movement of trees and branches and animals, and also by colors, of course, the great array of colors, a rainbow effect, if you like, that we see all around us. But going out in nature itself, just being outdoors, has a great calming effect on us all. It's been all very well researched that within 15 minutes of being outdoors, our stress hormone, cortisol, goes down in our saliva. It can be actually measured in the saliva. Also, the blood pressure decreases and the heart rate slows down. At the same time, the muscles in the face and the neck and the body in general relax. Being out in nature and walking around, taking gentle exercise, increases the serotonin and the dopamine. These are the two happiness hormones that are exuded from the brain during gentle and more vigorous exercise. And the overall effect is one of well-being. It's been really noted that people will decrease their level of agitation by being outdoors. They think one of the reasons for this, studied by Kaplan and Kaplan, husband and wife in 1989, was they said what seems to happen is that our attention is drawn out of ourselves into nature, into the movement, the color, the details, and into the lives of others, other non-human beings. Attention restoration theory, they call it. And this is very interesting for us who work at computers all day, or you're attached to your mobile phone for much of the day, that to take our attention away from that and out into the sky or the sea is just amazing. It's so relaxing. It's so good for us. It gives the brain a rest, and it is very good for memory. We know now that our memory works on images rather than the written word. images are very strong. So by being outdoors or gently walking around a park, our brain is taking photographs, if you like. And people will very often remember the feeling of being out there. I know my mother used to pass our local shop and she remembered that that was a great place, a happy place. And that was simply because my mom loved ice cream. And every Wednesday we would buy ice cream in that shop before we would go for our drive. And she would say, oh, 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 there's my shop, you know. And that was it, remembering the feeling, because of course you never forget the feeling. Many people enjoy so many aspects of the outdoors, the gentle breeze on their face, the having to curl up in a coat or wrap a scarf around one's neck or put on a hat, you know, to keep you cozy on a breezy day. Many people understand the lovely feel of mist on your face on a hot day, you know, a cool spray coming in on the sea on a hot summer's day. And of course, then the frost of winter, the crunch of leaves in the autumn, you know, all of these things have a huge effect on the feeling. And people living with the dementia are very, very focused on feelings. This is something that's very often forgotten about. So I would like to draw attention to it today in particular, since these little micro beasts, the bugs and the butterflies and bees, are extremely sensitive, as we are. And they remind us how sensitive our older people are. So I would like to share the screen with you now. There are many challenges when we're looking after somebody who has dementia. It can be a very challenging, a very tiring time. But it can be a time that's full of rewards and full of achievements and full of joy. Older people teach us to live in the present moment, and that is the very best benefit for us who are rushing about, to learn to slow down and live in the present moment. Sometimes we talk about challenging behavior, which of course, those of us who've been in the business for longer know there's no such thing as challenging behavior. There's only a certain behavior that is challenging for us who are maybe looking after somebody with the dementia. The behavior itself is a legitimate expression of a person's frustration, very often, or sometimes pain, discomfort, or confusion. So the challenges that come up in our day need to be thought about. They need to be listed for a particular individual. So if you're looking after your mother at home, or your father in a daycare center, or you're bringing people out on a trip, or you're working in a nursing home, you need to understand what are the possible challenges that you are going to have, not the person, the challenges that you are going to have in dealing with these people and their needs. And I would suggest that a lot of planning needs to go into this, to understand, as I've talked about on previous webinars, to understand the needs of the people very, very clearly. And by understanding their needs, to be able to read their body language when they're getting upset about something. I think that's really, really essential. And then you find that these moments, these situations don't arrive so much during the day because you have a preemptive action. You know, you have made sure that you have drinks so the person won't get thirsty. You've got warm clothes wrapping this person up, which is something which is overlooked very often on a summer day, that an older person might need a coat and a scarf to go out on an older day. They might need their heavy boots. You know, they might not want a bare sandals out in the garden. You know, it depends on who they are and how they are and where their reality is, you know, where they find themselves, where they feel that they are. Okay, so we're just going to look at how we can solve some challenges and get through and have a happy day by focusing on the bees and the butterflies. Wonder, I believe, is at the whole center of a happy life. I really believe that. And that's for everybody, young and old. The looking up into the sky and wondering and asking questions and breathing and being still. And the looking down into the water and seeing one's reflection, reflecting on who we are, why we're here, where we came from, all of these thoughts. And as people get older, they still have those feelings. They might not be able to put them in words, but they still have very strong existential feelings. So just being out of doors is essential for that. I told the story a few weeks ago about the man who noticed a slug turning around on a piece of wood and looking at him. That just really struck in my mind how happy this man was that the slug had heard his chair scratching out along the cement and had turned to welcome him into the garden. We know the birds respond to our feeding them. We know the insects run when we turn over a log. So all of these are signs that the world recognizes us, that we are important, we matter. All of these signs confirm that we're alive too. So being out in nature and just smelling the lovely smells of summer and feeling the fresh air, we can become filled with wonder. My mother could spend hours just looking at clothes blowing on the line. She loved to put the clothes out on the line and take them in again and just sit there and look at them blowing in the wind. She used to love to smell them when they came in from the line. She would have them in a basket and just put them up to her face and said, "Oh, this is heaven." The smell of fresh linen in off the line, you know. So this is all wonder, the mystery, the big unknown, the unmanifested, as it's called. Very important. When we see living things and we see how they live, there's a great learning in there for us, how to overcome situations. You know, I think that's why so many people enjoy nature programs, be it fish or birds or insects or plants. They say, "Oh, isn't that amazing? Look at that." You know, insects, butterflies, bees, they teach us so much about everything. They take their time, they groom themselves in the morning, they stretch, they have a little drink, they have a little look around, they communicate with their other members of the family, and they get on with their day. And when they come to a food source, they let the rest of the family know about it, or the rest of the swarm. If they come against danger, they release pheromones into the environment to warn off others. Now, this has been really well studied, particularly with the pine tree. We understand exactly how the pine tree avoids being attacked by the gall wasp. We understand the release of terpenes and how other creatures benefit and all of that, you know, we know it in detail. But any of us just looking at a little fly walking on a window will notice how the fly will clean his feet off after walking through a little drop of water, because the little pads on their feet have to be dry for walking across ceilings. So if we can focus our attention down on these mini creatures, we will see great humor in it. We will see great ingenuity, and it'll say something to us about our life and our situation. You probably know that the man who invented Velcro got it from looking at the little burrs on the plant and the little hooks. So this is the same with us. When we investigate nature, we find so many exciting things that can inspire us. I did a talk for Engaging Dementia for the Alzheimer Cafe that said accompanying a person with a dementia can be an opportunity, a delight, and a privilege. And I believe that. I believe that accompanying a person very often in a later part of their life when they don't really know much, they don't remember much about who they are or what they've done, we're there to be the scaffolding to hold them up and to remind them who they are and to help them overcome the challenges that they might feel just in getting through to us. Providing exciting times takes thought and inspiration. It really does. And I have noticed going around Ireland that in many places where older people live, there has not been this, the thought has not been put in, people are sitting around, they're bored, they're frustrated, they're rocking in their chairs. Very often they're not outdoors because it's too much trouble to bring them outdoors. Oh, we don't have enough staff on today. We're not bringing anybody out. They can sit in that chair, for 10, 12 hours and then go back to bed. What life is that? David Sherrard, who is famous in England for the butterfly technique, Dementia Care Matters, he said, how did we ever think that that was good enough to just lock people up and leave them sitting there all day? How did we ever come up with that? Like, that was never the way that it was in the past. It's not the way it should be. Of course, knowing a person is very important, and we go on about it again and again. We must know a person really well. So this is a father and daughter. And of course, it's easy when you're looking after your father, a family member, because you have hundreds of photographs and memories and you have other people to talk to. You know what your father likes to wear, what he likes to do, what he feels when he's looking at a sunset or watching horse racing. You understand all of these things. So the relative is the obvious person to ask the questions. What does this person like to do? And how does this person feel about things? How did this person live their life? How did they overcome challenges in their life? Did they find they were extrovert or were they introvert? Is this a very open person, your dad, or is he a secretive person? How can we look after your father? How can we understand him? You need to know who you're dealing with. And the family are the obvious ones to ask, and friends. And then neighbors, or, people live on a road and for many years, maybe the neighbors continue to come in and visit. They can be asked as well. If we look at an ant colony, we see that the older look after the younger until it's time when the younger have to start looking after the older ones. And we see that how the workers get very, very busy and they carry all the little cocoons out of the ant hill if there's danger. We see how the elder in many, many species have great respect. They're thought of with great respect by the youngers. Sometimes, alas, that does not happen with us humans. If we look at the bees and how they work, we have just got so much to learn. There's so many things that we see when we see the bee. On the left here, I have a honey bee. We've only one honey bee in Ireland, and we have many, many other bees. We've got about 24 bumblebees, and we have many, many, many solitary bees. We build these bee motels for them. But the honey bee on the left, on the dandelion there, is collecting pollen and nectar. And of course, he's also, or she's also fertilizing that flower, causing the fruit to form. Without bees, we would not have any food on this earth. We would not, very, very little. Most of our pollination is done by insects, and we are completely dependent on them for that. The bee carries the pollen in little sacs on the back legs and goes back to the hive very regularly, depositing the nectar and the pollen. But many people don't know that the bee also collects a thing called propolis. This beekeeper told me. Propolis is the sticky substance that's on the buds of the horse chestnut before they open in the spring. It's like a glue. And the bees use this propolis as an antiseptic in the hive. So if there's a little dead mouse or something in the hive, the bees will manage to shelter it off from the rest of the hive with this propolis. It's just amazing how much we know about the social habits of bees. So the things we might learn from bees in our care of people living with dementia, number one is communication. The bees communicate from first thing in the morning with one another, a little bit like the dawn chorus. They're all chatting and buzzing away to one another, communicating. And they're communicating everything: the weather, the wind, the sun, the light, the shade, predators in the area, and jobs that need to be done during the day, the communication. When they are out flying around, they come back and they do this waggle dance to tell the other bees where they have found a particular clump of flowers that are now ready for foraging. So how can we communicate? Well, I know when we looked after my mother with her Alzheimer's, there are 5 of us in the family, we did a great job at communication. We really did. From the start, we decided how we would work it. We decided which of us would be responsible for certain areas of my mom's life. And that worked really, really well. So there was one person looked after finance, another person doctor's appointments, another person house and home management, and another person outings and hair cutting events and sale of works and things like that. It worked really, really well. It meant that the diary on her table was filled up with information for each of us. So when we would come to visit my mom, the details were there. You could see what she did yesterday, what her humor was like, what she had for her dinner, and what she's looking forward to today. It's just amazing. Great communication works very well so that people with dementia feel that everything is running smoothly. And if they've had a bad night's sleep, and that's written in the diary, well then the people, the family or carers who come along the next day know how to deal with that. Excellent teamwork. That's obvious. A team can work really, really well if people know that all members of a team are different. I've worked in nursing homes where you get so many different types of carers. It isn't to say that some aren't a little better at the job than others, but in fact, they're just mostly what you have is different personalities. So you get people who are very private and shy and quiet, and they're an excellent carer for somebody who likes that kind of privacy, quiet, slow movement. Then you get the person who's the exact opposite of that, who's a wild character, cracking jokes all the time. He or she has their place also on the team. So in the hive, you have the drones who seem to do nothing, and you have the workers who seem to do everything. There's a place for everybody on the team once the team works as a team. Continuous effort. We know that an awful lot of energy is needed when you're dealing with a person who might be repeating things, but this can be made fun and needs to be. I have to say, I think it's one of the most stressful parts of looking after somebody who's got memory impairment, is having to repeat the same thing hundreds of times. But when you know that that's going to be the case, you can have a drink of water, or you can have a little packet of sweets for yourself or for your relative or your patient, whatever it is, and you can find ways of making this repeating okay. You can turn it into a bit of fun. With my mother, I used to write, lunch is at 2 o'clock, or sing the song, lunch is at 2 o'clock, or whatever it was. So I wouldn't go crazy having to keep repeating the same thing. Very often, a lot of the repeating is a sign, of course, of frustration. The person is unhappy about something, and so they keep repeating something else, not even related to the frustration. So it's really important that you check that your person is not sitting on something awkward, the corner of the chair, or that their clothes are uncomfortable, or they need to go to the bathroom or whatever, because a lot of repeating very often is about frustration. Comfort breaks in the day. We see the bee having lots of time for grooming during the day. Before they have their lunch, which is usually honey, they go down and have a good drink of water because the honey is so concentrated. So we remember that. Health and safety awareness. Our creatures are always aware of the potential of danger. And of course, we must be too. And that is danger to the eyes, to the hands, danger of slipping, danger of things going into the mouth and being ingested. I must say, I saw some things I could not believe over the years. I saw a woman who was doing sponge painting, put a very large green sponge with a sponge with green paint into her mouth, a very, very large sponge into her mouth. And she, it was just hard to believe that that could happen. I also gave a gardener, a whole handful of packets of seeds. And before I could turn around, he had ripped them all open and mixed them all up and was about to eat them. A whole flower garden of seeds. So, we have to be aware of what we're dealing with and always think ahead. Bees and insects always are prepared for the rainy day. They store up food. They're very economical with food. We need to be always ready for the unprecedented things that'll happen, because they always do happen. We know that. It rains when it's supposed to be sunny, and people might fall asleep when they're supposed to be actively enjoying the trip to the park or whatever it is. It can be so annoying sometimes if we don't have that in our plan, that we're prepared for the rainy day. We always have a fallback bag, a bag with little things in it that will attract the attention and the interest of a person with dementia, or give them what maybe will cheer them up, maybe a photograph that will cheer them up if they do happen to get sad. Now, at Christmas time, very often, and birthdays, people who look after other people with dementia very often get gifts. They get thank you cards, and they get, money to share out. And I must say that this is really important, that it gets shared out evenly between everybody, because it's really, really important that the team continue to get on well, be it a family or a group in work. It's very important that each one of us is appreciated and acknowledged for who each of us is, not that we're any of us compared to anybody else. And know who your friends are. That's really important too, of course. Butterflies, on the other hand, they remind us about strength through their gentleness and their beauty, their individuality. They look delicate, but we know that although they look like very gentle creatures, they have a great and interesting life. Some of them travel across Europe. Some of them travel very high up into the sky. In fact, that's normally where they meet their mate, up at the top of trees. Their metamorphosis inspires us enormously, how they change during their life. The butterfly lays the egg, and the egg becomes a caterpillar, and the caterpillar, of course, spends his or her all time eating, always the hungry caterpillar. And then the formation of the cocoon. the chrysalis, and that can last for a couple of days, weeks, or months. And of course, then when the cocoon hatches out into the beautiful butterfly, you have this magical transformation. And I think it's something about the transformation that happens in our lives at very different times. We are transformed from one way of being to another way of being. It's very clear how that happens for a lot of us. Things we can learn from butterflies, how a light touch can work miracles. As I said, David Sherrard went on about this quite a lot, the butterfly technique. And during your working day, as you're passing by many people, older people and those living with the dementia, it's a wonderful opportunity to say a pleasant thing as you pass. Not how are you and then walk off, but something about, this person. Oh, what a strong man you are. Oh, what beautiful blue eyes you have. Or pink is your color. Or, something, you got your hair cut. It takes 20 years off you, or whatever. There's so many ways we can have these little kindnesses where we touch a person's life and float off again. Of course, it's important that it's done sensitively and correctly. Very often a person has maybe poor hearing or poor sight, so we have to be aware of that when we're dispensing kindness around the room. Also, butterflies point out to us the importance of time. Really important, my God. You never see a butterfly out first thing in the morning. No. They have to wait until the day is ripe for them. The moths come out at night and they seem to love nighttime. And butterflies and moths are very similar creatures. But they're very sensitive to day, to the position of the sun. What day is it? What day of the week? What month of the year? And that's very important for people living with dementia, that we say, oh, today is whatever date it is, it's summertime. And I believe the sun is coming out later after lunch. We've had a lot of rain, or today is it's a week until Christmas, or oh my goodness, this is St. Swithin's Day and it's raining, or whatever. Orientation, very important, and signage, very important for people, just so that they can say, yes, I know now, I know what's happening. Wearing your name, I can't say this often enough, having your name written on your person in very large letters is so important for their comfort, and letting them know who you are, the day, the month, and the year. Very important. Different stages of life and priority. Yes, certain times of the day are for resting. Other times of the day are for eating. Other times just for reflecting. I would like to think that when we're looking after somebody living with a dementia, that we have 5 or 6 choices during the day. Yes, that we're outdoor, but when we're indoor, that we're looking at different activities for them during the day. A rummage box is all very well, but they're very badly done often. The idea of giving somebody a box of junk is not a good idea. In fact, it's insulting. I knew a lady who loved baking equipment, the papers, the tin foil and greaseproof paper and all of that. And we had a box, and she would enjoy looking through the baking equipment, the pastry brush and all of that for about a half an hour every day. Other people like looking at photographs of children or horses. Beauty and form make the world a better place. There's no doubt about that. We see that from the butterfly. Very often when people are looking after older adults, they go in, I think, and they have the pressure of the world on them. I think it's very important that you turn up rested, happy, optimistic, dressed well, even going out of your way maybe to wear special colors or jewelry or something, something interesting, an interesting jacket or belt or something that might cause conversation. I think we underestimate how important it is, our presence and how we appear, and how the environment is very much important for this person living with dementia. I think it's really, really important that we focus on what's on the wall, what's written, and making the place not too cluttered, having a clock, having a date, a calendar, things like this, really important. Butterflies are always, they're very conscious of that. They open their wings in the sunshine and they close them, and in the way that they display, if you like, and in their courting behavior and everything. They're very aware of their beauty, their form, their color, and I think that's important. Preparation prevents chaos. As I said earlier, there can be an enormous amount of chaos. Things can go a belly up very often, they really can. And if we're very prepared, that doesn't happen. We prevent that. I had an experience where I was driving my mother down the M50 and she wanted to get out of the car. I don't have child locks on the car, and it was very, very a difficult situation. I was trying to drive and there were cars overtaking me, and here was my mother trying to get out of the car beside me. So the next time I realized I needed to put a piece of wood in the car so she would not be able to access the handle of the door to get out. It was quite nerve-wracking. I had to sing her favorite song at the top of my voice to distract her. Very often also we need a change of clothes with us, a change of footwear, warmer clothes, snacks, things that are going to help us in difficult situations. To flourish is to have a clear goal at what you're on about and a clear direction. So your clear goal is, I'm going to spend 3 hours with this person. I want to look after their physical needs, their psychological needs, their cognitive needs, their emotional needs. I need to be very aware of how they're feeling, and I need to make their life as interesting and as fun and as safe as I possibly can. There's all sorts of help and tips and guidance you can get. As I say, there's a great list of references with engaging dementia that you can get. And there's also another sheet called Caring from the Heart, which is all about the different tips from all the different organizations who deal with people with dementia. For example, the Alzheimer's Society and different carers groups. There's so much information. So when we have a clear goal and we know what we're doing and a clear direction, I think that it makes it much more likely that we're going to be able to meet the needs of people. There are also very good videos on YouTube that explain how to get out of certain situations that might be really, really difficult for you. For example, bathing a person in the morning, or supporting feeding, or dealing with a misunderstanding. Some of these are very, very well covered on the YouTube videos from England and America and Ireland indeed, and around the world. Very, very interesting how to overcome challenges. The one thing that I remember most with my mother was that when my mother got agitated and confused, the last thing she needed was for any of us to fight with her. And yet very often in a nursing home, you'll see a situation where 4 or 5 of the staff will stand up and rally against somebody who's screaming or throwing things about. That's the last thing the person needs. They need somebody to be over on their side, doing it with them. I know that sounds crazy, but there are great videos about that, how you support a person who's trying to express frustration. You go and you stand with them and you shout back at the other people, no, 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 Mary is right. Mary is right here. You need to all sit down and be quiet. It's amazing how it works. Apologizing is something that works really, really well also. If a person is feeling misunderstood and got at, is feeling attacked, the best thing you can do is to apologize to them for the hurt that they are feeling, even if it has nothing to do with you. That really works well. Another thing is to handle the situation very carefully and skillfully. Putting your hand under the person's hands shows them that you are supporting them in where they're at the moment. They're probably very confused. You can help a person to brush their own hair by supporting the hairbrush from underneath. You hold and they are brushing their own hair or pulling up their own zips. There's ways that we have to stand back patiently and let this person express themselves in whatever way they can. That's really, really very important. All of these things have been well researched, how important it is for a person to keep their autonomy late into their life. And I think by looking at the natural world, we'll see how that works. We'll see how animals deal with all sorts of challenges. Last year, we had a very special discussion about how animals overcome dreadful catastrophes like tsunamis, forest fires. And it's really well worth looking at those videos, how life keeps coming up again and again, pushing its way forward through every kind of calamity and difficulty. That life wants to exist, wants to continue, wants to do well. It's amazing. And there's so much to us for us to learn about that and to share that with other people who maybe don't get it. Okay, in this set of webinars, we're also talking about music and poetry and melody and natural earth sounds. Let us not forget the lullaby, the easy tune that people hear and they find it relaxing. We know that some animals, for example, in the chimpanzee family, they make very special noises to their young, probably to their older members as well. We need to remember the importance of sound and songs and rhyme, rhyming and things that have been learned by rote. We need to understand the importance of those and make sure we use those in our dealing with people who are feeling quite a lot of mental confusion. So I'd like to sign off here, and I'd like to welcome you to look up poets, songwriters, people like David Thoreau, who live out in the wild, people like Michael McCarthy, the author, Richard Louv, John Feehan, William Wordsworth, indeed Patrick Kavanagh, and Brendan Kennelly. Our poets, our writers, and our authors who have written so much. And the very best of luck. I look forward to seeing you at the next session. So this is Joyce Fitzpatrick signing off from Inspired by Nature through Engaging Dementia and the support of Kim Tully and Danielle. You're very welcome.